Hello and welcome to another episode of the Football365 Isolation Show. There's no Sarah Winterburn with me today. Instead, I'm joined by Matt Stead. Matt Stead, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you, Mark. How are you today?
Yes, I'm all right, thanks. Getting through it. Now, we've got a lot to get through, so let's crack on. We are going through your mails as ever. I'd like to start off with one from Rude, who's a Manchester United fan. Rude spelled R-O-O-D-E, not Rude like Van Nistelrooy, sadly. But, can't win them
That's
all.
a shame. Yeah, shame.
Rude says, what more does Ollie need to do? He goes on for quite a long time in the letter. We won't read it all out. But the crux of it is he's made some good signings. The bottom line is that Ollie's instincts, he says, have helped secure players that fit into the squad. And improvement is very likely with a few more buys. Very likely. How do you read that, Matt? Do you agree with Rude?
I'm not sure about very likely. That seems very generous. I think the problem with Solskjaer at the minute is being judged on the last few months, since January, basically, since they signed Bruno Fernandes. But a lot of people are forgetting the months before that, where they were losing a lot of games. They were playing absolutely terribly. There was no plan. I think that's been the main plan. The main problem, sorry, with Solskjaer is that there's been no kind of direction.
Right.
But I think, like I say, I think it's skewed by results since January and performances since January. They have been a lot better, but I don't think it's a lot to judge Solskjaer as a whole on just since then, really.
Well, Sarah Winterburn, editor of Football365, says that Fernandes seems to be the missing link. And she said a few times on this show that he is the reason why things have changed rather than a culture that Solskjaer has sort of fostered over the last few months. What do you make of that?
I think, yeah.
Has he been that important?
You are, sorry.
Has he been that important? Has he been the man?
I'm not sure, really. Cause I think the thing with Solskjaer is that his plan has been these young, hungry British players, the Harry Maguires, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Dan James, everyone. Whereas Fernandes doesn't fit into that. He's not that kind of. He's youngish. He's 26, 27, and he's definitely driven. He's brought a lot to that squad in terms of G'ing them up and bringing them up to standard. But I just don't think he kind of fits into this whole ideal that Solskjaer is meant to be bringing. I don't think he's indicative of this strategy, really.
Right. But I suppose, though, I mean, United historically, when they've had a core of British players, have always had one or two superstars, foreign superstars amongst them. Even when you look at, the young kids coming through under Ferguson with Neville and Scholes and Beckham, there was Cantona there still, and there were seasoned professionals in that dressing room. So there is space to have that mix, isn't there? So what does Ollie need to do then? What Rude's headline there is, what does Ollie need to do? What do they need if they're going to compete next season? And by compete, I don't mean, get in the top two. I mean compete and be actually competitive up there with the rest of the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, the gap to Liverpool and City is far too big. I don't think. I think we'll be sat here in 2 years. I don't think Solskjaer will still be there. I think he's very much a kind of, not quite a transitional manager, but on that kind of same wavelength. He's similar to Dalglish when Liverpool got him. It was like January 2011, and he kind of, because he signed Suarez and Carroll at Liverpool, and he was kind of the manager who oversaw this Moneyball stuff at Liverpool, where they signed Jordan Henderson and Charlie Adams, Stuart Downing, based on the statistics and stuff. And he took them as far as he could, and then they got rid of him. They appointed Rodgers. So it was a case of him kind of, because it was after Hodgson as well. So Dalglish took them away from the Hodgson era, kind of set some sort of plan in place, and then someone else.
He was a buffer. And do you see that as Solskjaer's role as well then?
I think so, yeah. Like I say, I don't think in even like 18 months, 2 years' time, I don't think he'll still be there. I think he'll be there in a capacity of some sort, but I don't think he'll still be managing.
No. Okay, so give me 3 players that United could do with to get Ollie to that next level, if it's possible.
Well, obviously, there's talk about Sancho. I think they do need that kind of right-sided forward player. Wan-Bissaka is brilliant, but he's a defender. He's a defensive player. Sorry.
Yes.
He's not got that kind of attacking dimension. He has improved in that respect recently,
Definitely.
But he's still lacking that way. I think midfield's sorted. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Pogba, because there's still talk of him coming back into the fold, and if you do keep him, you've got to play him, basically. So if he plays alongside Fernandes, it'd be interesting to see, but I don't know. I think they probably need a defensive midfielder.
Is there much discipline in there with just those two? There probably isn't, is there?
That's the problem, yeah, because you're relying a lot on Fred maybe or McTominay, and I mean, I'm a massive fan of Scott McTominay, but he's still Scott McTominay. That's the problem there.
Right. Yeah.
So
okay. I mean, you mentioned Sancho there because it seems to be that we've all been talking about Sancho like he's nailed on to go to United, but it's not at all, right? It's still early days with this. As far as we know, it's not like anything's been signed off yet. And actually, you flagged up an email to me, Matt, that came from last month, and it was from a Liverpool supporter. It was from Lee, and he says that Sancho could reinvent the wheel for Liverpool, and that their front three, it might be time, given that there's a lot of interest in all three of them from big Spanish clubs, might be time to maybe freshen things up a little bit going forward. That front three have been fantastic now for a few seasons, but Lee seems to think that Sancho would be the guy for Liverpool.
I think he definitely fits in there. He's that kind of exciting young forward player. He definitely bring more kind of incisiveness to that right side for them. But I think when you look at that front three at Liverpool, I think Firmino is the one you can't touch. He's
interesting.
Pretty much he Klopp's cog up front. He builds the entire clog. Yeah, builds the entire, because they're a bunch of cloggers, aren't they? Liverpool builds the entire team around Firmino. So I don't think he's the one that you can replace. They've got Minamino in. I think that's kind of a project for Klopp. I think he'll try and get Minamino.
And there's no harm in having some good bodies in there for rotation, is there?
No, definitely. And as well, they've got the Africa Cup of Nations theoretically coming up whenever football does decide to come back at any point. So they'll lose two of those front three. I think if they were to get rid of one, it would probably be Salah. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. We had an email in from David Morris who says, Firmino's a poor man's Bergkamp. Now, before I continue, I want to make clear that it actually is a very positive email. He says, just watch some of Bergkamp's assists and believe when people complain Firmino doesn't get enough goals, you should view him as a poor man's Bergkamp. And I mean that as the highest compliment. I completely understand what you're saying there. Bergkamp is one of the all-time greats. I think most of us agree with that.
Absolutely.
Calling Firmino a poor man's Bergkamp is absolutely fine when you consider that most other clubs' number nines are a poor man's Firmino. So it sort of works. Yeah, I think I love Firmino. I think you're absolutely right about him. He's someone who can lead a line brilliantly, but also has that ability, just an unbelievable first touch, an ability to see the game from a bird's eye view and just know what's happening around him. And, people might take the mick and say, well, he hasn't scored at Anfield all season. Well, all right, well, Giroud didn't score in the World Cup, but he was absolutely essential to that French team. Would you rather have Firmino scoring 20 goals at home and then finishing second, or him scoring 0 and being integral to a championship winning side? And I think we all know the answer to that.
Well, yeah, that's it. He's the perfect kind of attacking foil because it's weird because when you think of a number 9, when you think of a centre forward, you think is he going to get 20 goals a season, 30 goals a season? And with Firmino, you don't want that. You don't get that. You don't expect that. That's not what Klopp signed. Well, Klopp didn't sign him, but he built his team around. That's not why he's done that. He's done that so Firmino can drop back, occupy midfielders and defenders, pull defenders away, and then there's a space for Salah and Mane to run in behind. And you can see that a lot of clubs are kind of trying to replicate what Liverpool do in terms of that number 9 who kind of floats about and they're the fulcrum of the attack.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a false 9, but at the same time, he is. I feel like I haven't really seen a player doing this before at this level for a team winning stuff by this margin.
Yeah.
Are we seeing essentially a new position for the Premier League being formed here with Firmino at number 9? Because he's playing like I always think about players like Teddy Sheringham, classic number 10s like that. But he's playing in that real fulcrum, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, it might be that he's kind of not invented a new position. It's similar to what Thomas Muller did in Germany. He's kind of created his own position for himself.
That's right, yeah.
And like I say, I think a few other clubs are kind of trying to replicate that in a way. You've got United have put Martial there. He's a very different player in terms of he's more of a finisher, Martial.
Yep.
But they've still tried to put the two players either side of him so that they can kind of stretch the wings and stuff like that, and
yeah.
create person behind. So I think there's a lot in that he's certainly altered the position in a way that other clubs are trying to copy it as much as they can. Because if you look at Liverpool, then they're the team you're going to copy in the world, aren't they? Throughout Europe,
if you're going to copy someone, copy the best, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to copy like Chelsea or Watford, right?
But you might copy City. So let's move on to them, because I think we know what Liverpool need. It's continuation, and if they lose one of their front three, a direct replacement. But it looks like everything is rosy there. There's no reason for them to make large scale changes. Man City, on the other hand, have they been shocked this season? And do we see a big change in personnel from them as a result?
I would be surprised if not, because obviously they're going to have to replace David Silva either way. He's leaving this summer. So that's a case of whether they do that in-house, whether Phil Foden gets finally properly promoted, gets his chance.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, hopefully. Otherwise, I think Guardiola might well be lynched by the British media. Or
you
they sign
included.
Someone else. Yes, definitely, yeah. We don't need any excuse to do stuff like that. Then you've got players like Aguero, who's kind of not coming to the end of his career, but he's in his early...
He's past his peak, though, it's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. There comes a point where you kind of think, is Gabriel Jesus going to take that mantle from him when Aguero goes, or do you need someone else? Because again, Jesus is kind of similar to Firmino in that kind of mould, whereas Aguero is that finisher. He's adapted his game under Guardiola, but he is, like, at his heart, he is a finisher at the end of the day.
And also, I mean, De Bruyne has been making a few sounds in the media about if this Champions League ban is upheld for 2 seasons, he might be looking over his shoulder. So there could be large-scale changes, assuming that the virus doesn't completely suppress the market. You could probably see Man City go off and spend X amount of 100 millions this summer, couldn't you?
I wouldn't be surprised, because they need a defender as well, really, because they've got Laporte there. He'll be back from his injury whenever the Premier League comes back. Alongside him, you've got...
So you've got one good centre-back, basically. Yeah,
you've got either Otamendi or John Stones next to him. And it's not really... It's not what you want, really. They've had Fernandinho playing there. But
it's not a long-term solution, is he?
No.
Okay, give me quick one-word answers to the following. What do Arsenal need?
You
can have a few words. I'll give you a few words.
Good players.
I'll give you one word. Partey. Thomas Partey.
Yes, good shout. That's 2 words.
2 words, I suppose. 2 words. Well, Partey's one. He's someone, we've talked about that for years, haven't we, with Arsenal? They need some steel in there. Every other season they get someone in who they think is the new Messiah. Last time it was Torreira. False dawns everywhere you look with Arsenal.
Yeah, they've been looking for the new Patrick Vieira for coming up to a couple of decades now, haven't they?
Since the day he retired, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, with Partey, it'd be interesting to see if they can get him. Obviously, the finances will be difficult and stuff. But I think the thing with him is that he'd be excellent for headlines, and that's what you kind of look for. That's what you look for in a signing, I think.
Especially when Jamie Vardy plays against him.
Exactly, yeah. That would be absolutely excellent, wouldn't it?
Vardy's having a party. Chelsea, they need some left-footed players. There was a good email that I haven't got in front of me now. A good email came in about Chelsea signing Ziyech. Ziyech?
Ziyech from
and the
Ajax,
fact that he's a left-footed attacker. They haven't had one of them for a long time. So apart from some left-footed balance, what else does Chelsea need?
It's interesting with Chelsea. I think they probably need... I don't know whether they need a backup striker or a striker who can challenge Abraham, because Lampard doesn't fancy Giroud.
No, I don't know why.
No, it is weird. Because obviously, like you were saying, with Giroud, he's never been rated that highly. But if you talk to like Eden Hazard, as I often do,
of course.
If you talk to him about the 2018 World Cup, it was like he rates Giroud so highly because of that. He'd never scored in there, but he kind of he's such a massive help to his teammates that.
Yeah, everyone who plays with him seems to love playing with him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then Batshuayi's obviously not really up to it. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he can get another striker.
Yeah. Right, let's move on. We'll finish with. I'm looking at this. If football comes back soon-ish, Matt, what do you want to see change? Do you want anything that stands out in your mind that if you could reset the Premier League entirely, I don't mean necessarily void anything, just reset the history of the Premier League, start again, what rules would you bring in or what changes would you like to see in the game?
That's interesting. I think, with football, the one kind of party that you'd never hear from are probably referees.
Yes.
Because obviously after games you hear from managers, in between games you hear from players like during the week and stuff. There's all sorts of quotes from agents and stuff like that, but you never hear from referees, do you?
No, you don't. Actually, we had some emails this week about this. Let's see. Yeah, Sam from Newton Abbey, ref word. He says, I'll be honest, this may be something that already happens I'm not aware of. But instead of officials doing post-match interviews, can their reports be made public? So that's an interesting take on it from Sam. Instead of having them in front of the camera straight after, they could, we hear about the referee's report all the time. Will that be in the referee's report? And you see the referee's report, whatever it is. Why can't we see it as fans? That would probably alleviate some of the suspicion that I think goes on around referees.
Yeah, that would be excellent. I mean, if you did post-match interviews with referees, it'd be very much kind of a Harry Kane style media trained.
Straight down the line.
Yeah,
with a straight bat.
You'd have Mike Dean coming out and saying the 3 points is the most important thing and stuff like that.
I'd love to see that.
It'd be interesting if you did have the match reports kind of published, because I don't really know what kind of language they can use in there. If you've got Jamie Vardy dropping F-bombs and C-bombs, whether you can publish that, to be honest, but it'd be interesting.
You can do little asterisks and stars and stuff. It's fine. I'd like to see it though. I mean, we've had a very interesting season with, VAR, and that controversy seems like 1,000 years ago. But with VAR, with the virus stopping everything, maybe it is time. It's a purge. We can start again. We've been cleansed. We can now start again and build a better society.
Just kind of forget about this entire season. Just like you say, not void it, but kind of carry it on as if it was a continuation of last season, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Get Pochettino back at Spurs, for example.
Get him back. Right, that's all we've got time for today. Matt Stead, thank you very much for joining me. Where can we get hold of you? What's your Twitter handle or whatever you use?
My Twitter handle is MattStead91, but I very rarely use it. I'm a massive fan of Twitter, but I try and keep away.
Okay, we'll just look out for your stuff instead then on Football365. You can get in touch with the show, by the way, and in touch with the website. It's at the editor at football365.com. Do keep writing in, because it really is the lifeblood of this show at the moment. And indeed, I think all the editorial. Until next time, thanks very much. I've been Mark Smith. That's been Matt Stead. Goodbye.